Welcome, my dear friend, to the new solo episode of Living Without Fear. I'm Esther Buerki, your host from Switzerland, and I'm so grateful you're here, taking this time for yourself to grow, to feel, to breathe, and to remember that you are not alone. Today, I want to talk about something that still feels a little bit embarrassing for me to share, but that's exactly why I know it needs to be said. Because the moments we find too small or too ridiculous to talk about are often the ones that carry the biggest truth. It happened last Saturday, my favorite day of the week. At 8 in the morning, I was in the swimming hall with my swimming club. We trained for 2 hours, and as always, afterward, we met upstairs in the cafe on the second floor. We sat around a big long table, drinking coffee. Someone had brought cake. Usually, this is one of the highlights of my week. Being together, laughing, connecting after the swim. But this Saturday was different. I had just come back from Egypt after 2 intense weeks with my 2 sons. The vacation was wonderful, but I was tired and exhausted from the long training with not much sleep. My body felt heavy, my mind slow. I came to the table together with another woman, and somehow I ended up at the very end of the table. And then it started. This quiet, painful story in my head. I looked around, saw the others chatting, and felt like I didn't belong. I thought, they are not talking to me because I missed the competition last week. They've all been together and I'm no longer part of it. A woman I had shared a room with during our swim trek in Turkey was sitting opposite me, talking animatedly with someone else, and she didn't look at me once. And instead of just accepting that maybe she was tired too or caught in her own flow, I started to shrink inside. I felt wrong, unwanted, not interesting enough. And then came that old voice in my head, the one that says, you should do something, you should talk. You should connect. You're being weird. You're not lovable if no one talks to you. It sounds ridiculous now, doesn't it? Such a small or ordinary scene, sitting around a table with people after swimming. And yet, it hit me so deeply. Because in that moment, I judged myself. I didn't allow myself to just be. And the funny thing is, I suddenly realized I've often done the same to others. There were times when I was the one deeply engaged in a conversation and didn't even notice the person sitting quietly beside me. So, in a strange way, I felt punished by my own behavior, like life was showing me how it feels to be unseen. I wanted to get out of that feeling so badly. When the conversation around me finally opened a little, I joined in, but still it felt forced. My ego whispered, "You're not good enough. You're not leading the conversation. You are not the one others listen to." And that's when I felt most ridiculous, realizing how much I still want to matter, to be seen, to feel part of something. Afterward, I biked home, called a friend just to feel connection again, and it helped. But I also knew I needed to look deeper because I think we all have these moments, don't we? Moments when no one talks to us, when we feel invisible, when we look around and see others laughing, connecting, and wonder what's wrong with us. We start building stories in our minds about being unwanted, too quiet, too boring, too different. And the longer we sit in silence, the louder these stories become. But here's what I've come to understand. Those stories are not the truth. They're just old fears returning. Fears of rejection, fears of not being enough, fears we learned long ago when love felt conditional. So, what can we do in such moments? How can we navigate them with grace instead of collapsing into self-judgment? First, give yourself permission to be tired. You don't owe anyone your energy. Sometimes your body and your soul simply need rest and silence. You're not strange for that. You're human. Second, don't believe the first story your mind tells. The story, they don't like me or I don't belong, is rarely true. Often people are simply caught up in their own world or just as insecure as you are. Third, watch your inner dialogue. When your mind says, "You're doing something wrong," try to gently answer, "No, I'm just being me." That simple act of compassion changes everything. Fourth, include others when you can. If you notice someone else sitting quietly, look at them, smile, or ask something small. Sometimes the connection you're longing for begins with you giving what you crave. Fifth, and maybe most important, don't shame yourself for wanting connection. It's not weakness, it's what makes us human. Wanting to belong doesn't make you needy, it makes you alive. And maybe there's also a beautiful invitation hidden inside these uncomfortable moments. They invite us to meet ourselves without distraction, without validation. They teach us to sit with our own presence and realize, even when no one looks at me, I'm still here, still enough, still whole. Being true to ourselves doesn't mean we always feel confident or radiant. Sometimes being true means admitting, "I feel lonely right now. I wish someone would talk to me," and not judging ourselves for that. That's where the healing begins. When we can sit with our discomfort and still whisper to ourselves, "It's okay. I still love you. You're doing fine." So next time you find yourself at that big table or in any situation where connection seems out of reach, remember, You don't have to prove your worth by speaking, smiling, or performing. Your presence is enough. Even in silence, you belong. And before I go today, I want to tell you something from my heart. Many of you have been listening to me for a long time, following my stories, my reflections, my journey with fear, and with learning to live true to myself. And maybe something in you is ready to shift too. If you feel stuck, if you feel trapped in the same pattern of fear, self-doubt, or people-pleasing, I'd love to help you. This is why I offer one-on-one coaching sessions where we can talk openly about whatever holds you back. You can free yourself by talking about things you never dared to talk about before, in a safe space, without judgment, just honesty and love. You'll find the link in the bio to book a free coaching call with me. It's your chance to take the first gentle step toward freedom. Freedom from fear, from old stories, from everything that keeps you from living as your truest self. Because that's what all my podcast episodes are really about. Becoming free, living without fear, and loving yourself even in the quiet moments when you don't feel seen. Thank you, my dear listener, for being here, for walking beside me with open hearts. If this episode touched you, share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Until next time, be gentle with yourself. You are never alone. And remember, your worth doesn't depend on how others see you, but on how softly you can see yourself.